Hey everybody, it's me, your new YouTube favorite personality, JuiceMan3941. That's right. Yes, I know it's not after midnight, but that's kind of my thing. Love you, Eric Clapton. All rights reserved. I didn't use it with permission, but I hope he understands. Yes, I know you're seeing in the background just the kind of running the Evolve thing like I do. Because to be honest with you, sometimes when I need to talk about a subject, it's hard to play the game and or broadcast at the same time because sometimes I get involved into the game. Not evolved in the game, but involved in the game. You know, this is episode 20, momentous. My 3 subscribers, I hope that you will tune in and see this later, or tune in now. I hope some more of you will watch my videos and subscribe and find my stuff that I have to talk about on the Gaming Roundtable to be interesting. Today's episode is entitled Standards and Practices. Now, what exactly does that mean? See, I want to talk about how some games set the standard and how that standard is skewed into being a carbon copy or a clone or a ripoff. But at some point, after a few of those games do that, it becomes the practice is to throw them under the bus until it becomes accepted as that is the standard and the norm, which I completely disagree with. Let's just talk a little bit about some old games here. Let's talk about Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry took the action, hack and slash kind of thing to an all new level, right? But then when God of War came out, which basically the people who created God of War has gone on record to state that they played a lot of Devil May Cry. They wanted to do something even a little bit more over the top. And Devil May Cry essentially is what inspired God of War. God of War borrowed its mechanics. But God of War was such a well-received game that a lot of reviewers really didn't fail to mention this, which I feel is wrong. Why didn't they say, well, God of War is just a ripoff of Devil May Cry? Well, they didn't do that, ladies and gentlemen. You know what they did was other games that came out after God of War, and I'm talking about Dante's Inferno, which I still feel like is a very strong and really, really interesting game, and I enjoyed playing it. See, now, I didn't own a PS2 or a PS3. I had an Xbox 360. So the closest thing to God of War I was going to get is Dante's Inferno, which had a great soundtrack. It was very visceral, good combat, and everything about it. But yet it was touted as this big, it's just trying to be God of War. So many reviewers, like IGN, Destructoid, and others, Game Informer, basically called it a ripoff of God of War, which is kind of interesting. Because God of War is kind of a ripoff of Devil May Cry in that sense, because again, it was inspired by that gameplay. But no one said anything about God of War. But when Dante's Inferno came out, that's what happened. But then, other games outside of that genre started coming out that was similar. And over a time, after being called God of War clones, eventually, people just accepted the fact that's the standard, how action, kind of beat 'em up, hack and slash, adventure type of thing has to be. And no one ever now accuses these games to being God of War clones. The original Darksiders was actually compared to God of War, and in a negative way, but Part 2 was not. And I've never really quite understood that. It just never made any sense to me that is exactly what was going on. And I just think that the practice of throwing something in the bus and then 2-3 games later, accepting it is wrong. Even 2 Human had God of War-like elements in its combat, and again was thrown under the bus for that. And yet at some point it becomes the standard. Think about the original Homefront. Now, yes, they had really big maps, but a lot of the gameplay, even some of the look and feel, was very Call of Duty. And a lot of people were just like, it's trying to be a Call of Duty clone. It tries too much to be like Call of Duty. Well, let me ask you this. If it wasn't anything like Call of Duty, would you be pissed about that too? Because that's another practice and standard of the YouTube community and the gaming community as a large, and reviewers as a large, right? If it's like one game, you throw it on a bus up until a point. But if it isn't like that game, you also throw it on a bus for not being like that game. Look, motherfuckers, you can't have it both ways, okay? You just need to accept this as a standard in practice. Bayonetta, for example, is an excellent game on the 360 and PS3, and the Wii U's version of Bayonetta 2, and even Anarchy Reigns in many ways took the God of War stuff onto another level. But see, no one said anything about that, right? No one said it was always just trying to be like God of War, because people started accepting that as the standard for gameplay. I'll throw another one out there. Gears of War. That piece of crap. I'm not talking about the second one or the third one. I'm talking about the first one. All it was an arena shooter. Is all it was, disguised in a pseudo 3D open world kind of hub thing. Gears of War 1 was go from point A to point B. Oh, we can't go any further. Kill everything in this arena, whatever area we're in. Now you can go further. That's how the entirety of Gears of War 1 was. Sorry to bust your bubble, because, I played through 1. Yeah, I wish I could like it. And everyone's entitled to opinion. My opinion tells me this game sucks, because I was playing games just like Gears of War on PC 5 years before Gears of War came out. Anyway, other games started following suit with the whole, run the cover and drop the camera for dramatic effect, which was a cool thing. But for several games after Gears of War that was doing this, because they wanted to mimic that, games like Dark Sector had run to cover with a drop camera, Inversion has run to cover with a drop camera, just to name a couple. All of a sudden, they were just, it's a Gears of War clone, trying to be like Gears of War. And then at some point, it just became the standard, and then a game come out around that same time, months later, called Damnation, which was not a good game, not a great game, a fairly fun game, but not the greatest game. But it was interesting, it had a cool concept. Civil War kept going on, it's steampunk and whatnot. It didn't have cover, and it said, and some reviewers, if not most, were actually stating this really sucks that it doesn't have third-person cover mechanics like Gears of War. Really? So again, upset that it didn't have it. But if it did have it, you would have threw it under the bus saying it was trying to be a Gears of War clone. Once again, you can't have your cake and eat it too. That is the practice of the gaming industry and the YouTube community at large. There are certain standards that games set, something new, something interesting. And when that happens, a lot of other game companies want to say, they're not trying to copy, they're not trying to mimic it, they're not trying to clone it. They see this is the next step in development on some game mechanic, something simple like running to cover or other things, and that's what they do. That's exactly what they do. I've even seen already negative reviews about Doom that's not even launched, saying that it's not fast enough. It's just not Doom. It's more like Unreal Tournament. I think it's trying to cater to Call of Duty fans. Really? No, it's not. It does play a lot like Unreal, but I like that. This reviewer said something along the line, the standard, in the old Doom, you could shoot somebody point blank and it would kill them. In this one, it takes 2 shots. If I have a super shotgun, it's 2 or 3 shots. Really, what game are you playing, dude? Because as long as they don't have any shields and straight up health, point blank, yeah, I dropped motherfuckers. It was lights out for them. And the standard for an arena-style shooter, right? Let's just throw this out there. Doom started it. Quake improved upon it. Unreal approved upon that, and there hasn't been any arena style shooter games since then, because that genre kind of died. Of course, Doom is going to play a lot like Unreal, because Unreal set the standard, ladies and gentlemen. That's how Doom is going to play. That's just how it's going to be. For you to be upset about it, you think about those old PCs, yeah, of course, it was just pixelated graphics. The maps weren't really 3D. They were 2D on a 3D plane. Of course it ran fast as lightning back then. But that's because there wasn't much in the terms of graphics. It's going to be a little slower now. I, for one, welcome it. I'm a huge Unreal fan. I think Doom's multiplayer is superior to all the other MPs that's out there right now. That's my personal opinion. Because that is my all-time favorite multiplayer game. But Unreal set the standard. It set that standard. But for some reason, people are just throwing it under the bus. But you know what? By the time we get other people going, if Doom sells really well, other companies will go back to this arena-style stuff. I guarantee it. And for a while, it will be, they're just trying to copy Doom, and they're just trying to copy. And then at some point, it'll just be accepted again as, oh no, all is fine, because that's how it has to be. Because if it doesn't do what those other games do, you'll bitch about that. Standards and practices. It's unbelievable. You know, people just don't understand that these games and their type of gameplay become the standard, right? That's how it works, right? You've had, for many years, online MMOs. You know, you've had games like EverQuest that started years and years ago. But World of Warcraft came along and kind of set the standard, the mode, and a lot of games out there kind of play like that now. Even though when they first started coming out, that was similar. It's a World of Warcraft clone. But now they're not bitching about it being a World of Warcraft clone because it's the standard. They've changed their practices. It's absolutely ridiculous. Holy cow, the green light's on. Time for a word from our sponsor. Today's episode, Gaming Roundtable episode 20, Standards and Practices, brought to you by Beer in the Throat. Man, that's good. Back to you, Juice Man. Thank you, sponsor. Now, look, you know, again, a lot of people accuse me of getting on the soapbox, but these are subjects that are dear to me. Standards and practices. That's how it is. I remember GTA, when other games would come out that had similarities with it in the open world type sandbox game. There was games that said, well, it's trying to be a GTA clone. GTA set the standard, but now you don't see that. You know, there are other games out there besides GTA. And I feel like there's games out there that are better than GTA, even without the online multiplayer. Sleeping Dogs is one of the best sandbox games you can buy. It's absolutely fantastic. It does a lot of things better than GTA. As a matter of fact, when GTA Vice City was out, I remember playing by Sierra Scarface on the original Xbox. Yeah, that game was superior to that game. The game was fantastic. Scarface was an amazing open world game that did a lot of things that ended up being inside of GTA 4. You know, like if the cops come on screen, you see a little blue and red expanding, and if you can get out of that expansion zone, then you've escaped, or you've escaped long enough and whatnot. Yeah, that was in Scarface. GTA borrowed that because Scarface improved upon GTA's formula, thus in creating a new standard of gameplay. And then GTA borrowed a lot of that. Go play Scarface, then go play GTA 4, you know, and you'll be like, oh, huh. Well, these are kind of similar, even though Scarface came out first. And this is my point, though, people. The standards and practices is amazing to me. It's either people bitch because it's trying to be like some game that's their favorite, or reviewers bitch about it, right? And then at some point it becomes the practice is, oh, well, we can't throw it under these other games under the bus anymore because that's the standard. People should recognize the standard right off the bat. Now, you're watching Evolve, and there is another reason that I'm showing this again and playing in the background, is because Evolve is an asymmetrical shooter. They don't make a lot of asymmetrical shooters. The last one I played that was an asymmetrical shooter on a console was Brink by Bethesda. I'm going to tell you, Evolve to me has set the new standard for asymmetrical shooters. How teamwork should be accomplished. How the map's sizes need to be. It's kind of how I feel about the game. If you're going to make a team-based asymmetrical shooter, you better look at Evolve. See, I don't have to click the stick in to run. You run automatically. They've simplified the controls to keep you in the action. And that's exactly how I feel about it. And they sort of have set that standard, in my opinion, of what we should expect from asymmetrical shooters. By simplifying the controls and allowing you to switch to different characters on the fly, and the way the teamwork works, where that support is truly a support, the healer is truly the healer. The healer should not be bothering with the monsters, but keeping track of the teammates and what they're doing. Support should be doing the same, while the damage dealer should be attacking, right? And the hunter should be like not just finding, but like pinning it down and doing your thing against the monster. That is the standard. That's how it should work. That's how teamwork should work in the game. But I bet you that the next game that comes out, that's an asymmetric shooter, whenever that's going to be, because a lot of people don't like these games, they'll probably compare it and say it's trying to be an evolved clone or this clone. But that's the standard. That's the standard. Okay? Remember? They don't make a whole lot of hack and slash like beat 'em up games anymore. Dynasty Warriors is the closest thing you're going to get. When other games come out you don't see games come out that are Dynasty Warriors like. The closest thing we get is the Marvelous company that puts out, Saren Kagera and your Onichibara and whatnot, but no one ever really accuses them because their gameplay is similar to that. But people just kind of accept it. Oh, it's a Japanese anime thing. For a long time, Final Fantasy set that standard for roleplay games, up until the point where they lost their fucking shit, and Square Enix didn't know what the hell they were doing anymore. But a lot of games came out that followed that Final Fantasy formula. And there was reviewers back then saying, oh, it's just trying to be a Final Fantasy clone. It tries very hard to be Final Fantasy and what Square is doing, but it's not that. I remember seeing negative reviews about Legend of Dragoon on the PS1, which was an excellent roleplay game, but yet was compared to it. But at some point that stopped, and people said, this game, it borrows much elements from Final Fantasy, and they were okay with it because, again, it became the standard. The practice of throwing it under the bus at first, and then the practice of accepting it. Standards and practices. Hence the name of the episode 20. Green lights on. Here to from Espaso. Hey, Jack, how you doing?
Well, all I know is my Aunt Adele used to love beer in the throat. Seems awful early for a beer, but who cares?
Thanks, Jack, for coming by. I'm going to leave you, the YouTube community, with this on this short video of mine. Standards and practices, man. If you're going to do reviews, if you're going to do videos, if you're going to talk and discuss about games, don't sit there and be mad that a game borrows elements or plays like another game that happens to be the big seller in the room. Because I remember seeing some reviews about Bound by Flame saying that it tries too hard to be Dragon Age and too hard to have Dark Souls-like moments. Really? Because they kind of were inspired by those games. Dragon Age kind of set the standard for that storytelling RPG. Dark Souls kind of set the standard for visceral combat in fighting difficult and interesting creatures. Lords of the Fallen is a direct clone of Dark Souls, and I actually seen some reviews where they complained about that, but they made no bones about it. City Interactive said, we were such big fans of it, we wanted to do something that was similar. We love that formula. A Dark Souls is now a genre as far as they were concerned, but people complained. If you're going to do these videos, if you're going to do reviews, whether you're writing them or doing videos on YouTube, my friends, just, remember, there is the standard. This is other games have set before it. Don't review a game or look at a game or put a video out that's not a review, but you're, it just tries too hard to be this. It tries too hard to be that. No, it's just doing what the other game does because that's now the standard. Don't fall into those same shitty practices like the rest of everybody does. Anyway, I am the Juiceman 3941. That's right, Juiceman. And you've been watching episode 20 of the Gaming Roundtable. And as always, my gamer friends, good gaming.